ported cylinder head, carbon fibre switch panel, shift light, launch control. Everyone at work thinks I'm an idiot with this car. I've got a new problem, it's not working. Hello and welcome to this video. I'm Marcus Hayes and today you join me from the cockpit of Maude, my Mk1 Mk2 Escort. Since the last video I've done a couple of little bits on this car and I'm going to bring you up to date in this video. I've done a couple of bits to the interior. I've also managed to do a couple of bits that I failed to do in the last video. But before I get into any of that, I want to show you something I'm really excited for Esther, my SD170 powered Mk1 Escort. So I'll put that clip in now and I'll see you afterwards. So what I have here is a ported cylinder head, which I won't be fitting to Esther for quite a while, but I just had to show you it now. The exhaust and the inlet ports have been opened up, which I'll show you in a minute, but also all the valves were removed and cleaned and they've been relapped back in with the two angles, and the combustion chamber areas have been polished to prevent carbon buildup. Now I'll just try and show you the ports with the light on my phone. Sometimes the GoPro spazzes out when you hit it with bright light, but we'll see how it goes. So here's the exhaust port. This is number one. You can see it's been opened out loads, and the inlet has been done a bit less than the exhaust. But yeah, as you can see, it's really been opened up to improve flow. All that work was done by a company called A.L Developments, who are big in the game. I'm sure most of you have already heard of them. I will leave a link to their Facebook page in the description. Definitely get in touch with them if you need any cylinder head work doing, or any engine work doing, to be honest, and definitely let them know that I sent you. As well as the bits that I just described to you, there have been a couple of other little bits done to the cylinder head, which A.L Developments are keeping a secret. But the plan with this cylinder head was to take Esther's SD170 engine from 184.9 bhp, which is where she's at now, to 200. And I think that's easily going to be achievable with this cylinder head. A.L Developments very kindly also sent me and Kat a beanie hat, which I really appreciate. And I've got some stickers in there and some business cards to give out to anyone I know who's looking to get cylinder head work done. I want to send a massive thanks out to A.L Developments for doing such a good job on Esther's cylinder head. I can't wait to get it fitted to her engine and see the results. But as I've mentioned, I am going to wait a little while. I do want to take Esther down Santa Pod with her current setup, and then we can sort of do a compare, you know, before and after fitting this cylinder head. But yeah, as I've mentioned, get out A.L Developments for all your cylinder head modification requirements. So as you can see, exciting stuff coming for Esther. I can't wait to see what the new cylinder head is going to do in terms of increasing her power. She's currently got 184.8 bhp, and I'm pretty sure that cylinder head will take her up to the 200 mark, which will be awesome. In fact, there was an Escort that went on the dyno recently at Dan ST Engineering with a similar setup to Esther, but with an A.L Developments head, and that made 210 horsepower, which would be epic. Now I'm actually talking to you right now through my new GoPro Hero 10, which has been purchased with the money that I get from this channel, whether it be the small amount I make on advert revenue or the money that I make from you guys that are kind enough to purchase merchandise from my website. So massive thanks to you guys for your support. I think the next thing I'm going to look to buy in terms of equipment is some sort of microphones so that the audio is a bit better when I'm in the car like I am now. The GoPro Hero 10 is quite similar to the GoPro Hero 9 that I was using before. It does have, you know, more features and higher specs, but none that I really utilise because I'm still shooting in 1080p. But it does now mean that my backup camera is a similar quality to my main camera. So when I'm filming two views at once, like this, it means that both pictures are going to be relatively the same quality, which is good. I'm currently on my way to my other garage. I'm just going to pass through there before work because I managed to get out and about a bit earlier today. So when I get there, I'll bring you up to speed with everything that's happened to this car since the last video. Alright, so I've made it to my garage and I've got my gimbal with me, so I thought I'd have a little play. And as you would have seen, got a couple of changes to the interior. Maude now has her steering column cowling fitted, although I do need to change the orientation of this barrel. It needs to be up a bit, and I haven't got any screws in yet to the dash, but I've got a screw there and a screw under there. So yeah, it definitely looks a lot tidier now without everything uncovered. And you would have also just seen that Maude now has a carbon fibre switch panel instead of the powder coated alloy one that she had before. That switch panel was given to me by Gary Ball, who also supplied Maude's carbon fibre rear lens protectors, and he also supplied most of the carbon fibre that's fitted to Esther, my Mk1 Escort, and I've already picked up some more bits for Esther, which I will show you at some point in the future. I'll leave links in the description to Gary Ball's Facebook and his Instagram. Definitely get in touch with him if you need some proper pre-preg carbon fibre for your Escort, and definitely let him know that I sent you. I have now managed to get Maude's shift light and her launch control working, thanks to my friends at Motorsport Electronics. I spoke to Stuart and he explained how to wire up and set up both of those features. I will of course leave links to Motorsport Electronics website, their social media and their very useful YouTube channel in the description of this video. They're always so helpful explaining things to me. So I'll just talk you through the wiring. We'll start with the shift light. So basically I took the blue and brown wire, which is one of the spare output wires on the ME100 ECU, and I connected that to the earth side of my shift light. With the low side outputs on the ME100, they're switched earths rather than switched positives. So you take a switched positive from somewhere else in your loom and you put that to one side of the shift light, and then the other side of the shift light goes to the output wire on the ME100. So basically the ECU switches on the earth side of that circuit when you reach the revs, whatever you set the shift light to. So yeah, one of these wires is a switched 12 volts that comes from somewhere else in my loom, and then the other one of those wires is connected to that blue and brown wire, which is one of the outputs on the ME100. Now for the launch control, I wrongly assumed that this needed to be hooked up to one of the low side outputs on the ME100, but it actually needed to be hooked up to the digital input. And I actually printed this list of the connections and this diagram off from the Motorsport Electronics website. And the brown and blue wire that I was just showing you for the shift light, it says on this list that it's output 2. It is in fact output 6 on my ECU for some reason, but it doesn't matter, it's a spare output. And the digital input that I was just telling you about for the launch control is this one, HS Digital Input 2, and that is a red and white wire. So the red and white wire needs to connect to one side of this switch, and then the other side of this switch needs to go to earth. So it's not the same as the shift light, you know, this is a switched input. It's not a low side output like the shift light is. So yeah, the red and white wire I've hooked up to this orange wire, which is going to one side of the switch, and then the other side of the switch has got a wire going to the body for earth. Now for the launch control, I did have to add a resistor to the circuit. It's all underneath, you know, electrical tape and stuff now, so I'm not going to peel that back, but I will explain exactly where to put the resistor. So as I said, the digital input is connected up to the switch. Now in this loom, the purple wire is what's known as a 5 volt reference. And I think on this setup, that's just going to the TPS, the throttle position sensor. I don't know if it's connected to anything else. But yeah, you leave it connected as it is. You don't cut the wire, but you strip back a little bit of the insulation and you solder one side of the resistor to that purple wire. And then the other side of the resistor, you solder in to this red and white wire. Again, you don't cut it, you leave it connected to the switch, you just strip back a bit of the insulation and connect the other side of the resistor to that wire. So, you know, your purple wire is still connected to what it was before, the red and white wire is still connected to your launch switch, but in between those wires, you put one of these 1K resistors. So I hope that makes sense. And now I've explained the wiring, I'll turn the laptop on and show you the settings that you need to change on the software. All right, so with the ignition on and the laptop plugged in to the ME100, it's now connected.
Now, I wrongly thought that both the launch and the shift light needed to be hooked up to one of the low side outputs. If you click I/O setup, you'll see all the low side outputs here. Now, as I say, according to the wiring diagram, the blue and brown wire was supposed to be LS2, but with trial and error, once I'd set everything up, I was able to realise that it is actually LS6. Now, for the shift light, you need to set whichever output is hooked up to your shift light to VICS relay. And the way I understand it is that's just an output that's set up to come on and off actually at a given RPM that you can obviously set yourself. Now, there's no tab at the top for VICS, so what you can do is you go over to this search bar here and just type in VICS, and you'll see you've got options here. The VICS status, if you click that, double click it, it will put one of these on the screen. There was already one there, that's why it's put 2, and that's just a status to let you know if that output is on or off. I'm guessing that would come on every time the shift light came on. And then you've also got VICS settings. If you double click that, it will bring up a box here with the VICS settings. Now, I already had one over here, so I'll X that one. And yeah, basically on the VICS settings box, you'll see you've got enabled, yes or no. You obviously put that on yes. The minimum RPM is what you want the shift light to come on at. The max RPM, just set to something higher than what your engine revs to. In this case, I've got it set to 15,000. And the inverted output, I've got that switched to no. Now, if, for example, your shift light was on and then it went off at whatever you set the minimum RPM to, then you know you need to set the inverted to yes. So yeah, once you've got those settings and the correct output switched to VICS, your shift light will work. As I say, when I hooked it up to LS2, which is what I thought that wire was for, it didn't work, and then I just basically used trial and error trying to switch each one of these outputs to VICS, and once I did that, it worked once I had it hooked up to LS6. Now what I'll do to save annoying the neighbours, I'll just switch this minimum RPM down to 1000, push enter, and then I'll start the engine and show you it working. So as you can see, the shift light is off, and then if I rev it up to 1000, it comes on. But I'll be having that at about 6,800. I'll just do some experimenting when I'm on the road. So that's the shift light. Now I'll show you how to set up the launch control. So as I've already mentioned, the launch control doesn't need to be hooked up to one of these low side outputs. It actually needs to be hooked up to the input, which is down here. And in this box, there's only one drop down menu, and you basically need to switch that to clutch switch like that. For the launch, there is actually a tab at the top of the software, ALS/launch, so you click that, and then over here you've got your launch settings. So you set the source to digital pin because you are using the digital input. You set the switch active state to low, and then the LC enabled, launch control enabled, you switch to yes, and then the launch RPM you switch to whatever you want the launch button to restrict the revs to. The VSS limit below that you want to set to 0 unless you have a speed sensor on your car, because you can set this launch control up a lot more complicated. You can basically tell it to work automatically when the car's below a certain mile an hour. So you'd set it to say 20 mile an hour, and then it will know to just come on every time that you're below 20 mile an hour. You can also hook it up to a clutch switch rather than a switch on the dash. So yeah, the way I'm using it is very basic. And I think I remember Stuart saying to me that if it's working in reverse, i.e. it's restricting the revs until you push the button, then you switch this low to high. So I'll just fire the engine back up and show you the launch working. So yeah, the engine will rev as high as you want until you push the switch. And then it holds it to 3,500 revs as set in the software. Now, yesterday I was able to get a little bit of a flame out of the exhaust, so I'll see if I can do that now. Yeah, that didn't work. I think the exhaust needs to get a bit hotter, but I'll put the clip in that I filmed yesterday. All right, so I now need to get to work. I'll see if there's a opportunity to have a go on the launch on the way. Slightly uphill here, but see if we can get it to bang as I go under this bridge, because I'm really immature. Just hit the launch button, give it a rev, see if the bang echoes. Let's open the window. There's a sort of overhanging bit in one of the offices on the way into my work. I'm sure they hate it when I do this, but I'll see if I can get it to echo. No, you've got to get the revs just right. Launch control from the temporary traffic lights on my work road. Everyone at work thinks I'm an idiot with this car. They're right. Right, I need to go and take care of my day job, but I'll be continuing this video later on in the week when I'll be doing something or other with the cars, so I'll see you in a sec. Hello, right, into a new day, and I've got a new problem with Maude. It's an intermittent fault with the radiator fan. The other day it wasn't working, it was working today, but the other day when it wasn't working, I did run a few tests to try and rule things out. So I'll just quickly explain how the fan's wired up, and then I'll explain the test that I did. So I've got this relay mounted here, which actually came with my adjustable controller, which doesn't work. Basically, when this stopped working, I got Zach at Zoo Speed to weld this bung into my water rail so that I could have a normal fan switch. And yeah, I just decided to carry on using that relay. And the way it's wired up, I've got a trigger feed coming from the ignition that runs to the relay, and then the earth side of that circuit goes through the fan switch, so that when the water gets up to the temperature that the fan switch is, it completes that circuit, and then it actually triggers the other side of the relay. And that circuit consists of a wire that comes straight from the positive terminal of the battery through the relay, and then that goes through there to the fan, and then the other side of the fan wiring goes back through here, and it's attached to the body. So the first thing I wanted to rule out was the fan switch, and that is really simple. You just unplug here and put a wire between these two terminals on this fan switch plug. And as I say, it is an intermittent fault, that's why the fans just come on. But the other day that didn't turn the fan on when it wasn't working, so I knew that the fan switch wasn't the problem. What I did then, using my multimeter, I set it to ohms down here so that I could test continuity, and I tested continuity between this black wire and the body of the car, and there was continuity, so I knew that this wire wasn't the problem. And then the next thing I did was unplug the fan wiring here and connect the fan directly to the battery, which did make the fan come on. So I knew that the fan itself wasn't dead, I knew that the fan switch wasn't dead, and I had at least tested this wire that goes to the body. So that led me to believe that it was either the relay itself or some of the other wiring that was at fault. To be honest, I've never really liked this setup with this relay. It's got like a separate fuse for it, whereas I prefer to use the relays that already have a fuse holder built in. And yeah, I had always planned to redo this relay wiring. So this morning I basically made a start on this. I've knocked up this relay holder, and I've already connected the wire that's going to be coming from the battery and the wire that's going to be going to the body to earth that circuit out. And as you can see, this relay is one that holds a fuse into it directly. So while I've got a bit of time today on my break, I'm going to wire up the new relay. First things first, I'm going to disconnect the battery and move that out of the way. And then I'll unscrew the relay. Now it actually could have just been this rusty earth connection bit, but yeah, as I say, I've always wanted to redo this. So one of these is the earth side of the fan wiring, and the other one will be the earth side of that fan switch wiring. So yeah, both of these will be connected back to the body. In fact, this earth wire that I've put on this relay won't be needed. I need to get that out. I've actually only got 2 spade terminals with me, which I'm going to need for the other 2 wires on this. So I'll have to just leave this black wire in there and then connect this to the wire that goes to the fan. Alright, so I've unplugged the old relay. I've made a note in my head which wire's which. This is the feed from the ignition. This is the wire that goes to the fan. This is the wire that goes to the fan switch. And then this power wire that hooks up to the battery terminal I need to remove. So I have to undo these and pull that out. And then I can put my other one in there. Although I might do that last actually once the battery's back in. Now these already do have spade terminals on, but they haven't got the lock on them, so yeah, I'm gonna have to redo them. So yeah, I'm gonna redo all these terminals. Alright, so I've got the new relay holder wired up now. I accidentally put the new spade terminal on this fan positive wire, which then meant that I had to move the wire that I'd already made up mistakenly and connect that to the wire that goes to the fan switch. And I have soldered it, but I didn't have any heat shrink, so I've just wrapped tape around it. And soldering it was a mission in itself, because I had to put the battery in just so that my cigarette lighter socket worked, so that then I could plug this gizmo into the cigarette lighter so that I could use a soldering iron. Anyway, I think it's all wired up properly now, apart from obviously this one that needs to go to the battery positive. So yeah, I think I'm gonna clean up this hole and then screw these earths and the relay holder to that hole, and then I should be able to just put the battery in, put the relay in, and then just do this lastly. Alright, so I think it's all wired up now. I'm going to attach this to its own hole separate from the earth, so that'll just dangle around there for now. And yeah, next time I'm around the garage I'll drill another hole for that. There is a few holes here, and I did find this screw in the car, but those holes are too big for this screw. But yeah, now I'll just bridge the 2 pins on the fan switch connector again to double check that I've wired this up properly. And the fan's not working. The only thing I didn't check the other day was the trigger wire, if I'm getting power from there. So if I turn this to volts, and I need to test this wire here. Nothing. It's that wire there. Touch this on the body somewhere. Yeah, I think the issue is actually to do with the barrel, because I was trying to test for voltage from this yellow wire on the back of the barrel, and yeah, I'm getting nothing, and I can actually see where this has been repaired in the past. There's loads of solder on there. I'd forgot that I actually had to repair that before. So it looks like the relay wasn't the issue, but as I say, I wanted to do a better job of that anyway. But yeah, it looks like my actual issue is from the barrel. Now this output that I had the fan connected to is one which only has power when it's on the first click and not on the starter. Obviously I don't use this for the starter because I've got a push button. I just wonder, yeah, because the spring mechanism broke in this, that's why I stopped using this and I put the push button in it. But I wonder if I just pull the key back, but so that it's still on the first click. Yeah, Yeah, now we're getting power. So yeah, it's all to do with the fact that that starter connection spring loadedness is broken. So even when you're not on the starter position, it's still connecting up that part of the circuit because there's no spring to force it off of the starter circuit, and then therefore it doesn't send power to the fan. What I think I will do is just have this wired up on the main 12 volt switched with everything else. The main reason I had it hooked up to that connection was, in theory, if the car's hot and you go to start it, then the fan would be spinning while the battery's trying to nick current for the starter motor. So I thought it'd be better if when you're starting it, it shuts the fan off. But because everything's now hooked up through the start button, it's not going to be doing that anyway. The fan will still spin while you're trying to start the car if the car's hot. So yeah, I think I'm going to rewire the feed to the fan at some point. It's pretty simple really. Need to hook up this wire to, I think it's this one, or I could hook this up to the main flick up switch here. But yeah, it seems to be working now. As I say, if I make sure that the key is sort of not this way. So yeah, we'll plug this back in. Sweet. So at least I know that I wired the relay up correctly. Just need to sort out the feed. Now, one other thing I really want to do, and I am really late to get back to work now, is get rid of this setup for the fan wiring. And I want to hook up this 2-pin connector so that if I ever need to remove the fan in future, or the rad, I just need to unplug it rather than undoing all this tape and pulling the individual spay terminals apart. I'm going to quickly crimp all these on and get it sorted. So once the pins are crimped onto the wires, it's just a case of pushing them into these holder things. And this only goes on one way, so you can't, you know, wire it up wrong. So you have to make sure when you first do this that you get the wires around the right way. So black to black goes in there. Blue one goes in there. Like that. And then whenever I need to wire up or unwire my fan, just a case of undoing or doing up this 2-pin multi-plug. Really, really cool. And while we're talking about connectors, some of you may be wondering what this is. Well, this is actually a H7 bulb connector. You do have to separate these pins on the fan switch slightly, but yeah, it's just a much more neat way of wiring up your fan switch. Now, I mentioned before that I was unable to hook up my choke cable properly until I'd ordered a solderless nipple, and yeah, I ordered a couple of different sizes, so that means I can hook this up. But what I've realised is there should be a bracket on the side of the carbs here to hold the outside bit of the cable. So yeah, I'm not actually going to be able to hook that up properly until I've got that bracket. I'm not sure if these carbs came with it, but I'm unable to find it in amongst my spares. Anyway, now I really do need to get back to my day job, so I'm going to find a better parking space for Maude and jump back in my van. Alright, so back into my work van, and I've got a bit of catching up to do, which is no problem. Although I haven't fixed the intermittent fault with Maude's fan, I think it's safe to say that it was the trigger wire that was at fault. But as I say, I've always wanted to redo that relay wiring anyway, so I don't feel like I've wasted my time redoing the relay wiring. And yeah, the very next thing I'm going to be doing is, you know, redirecting the feed for the fan relay from where everything else gets its 12 volt switched feed from. That should be really simple to do. Now, you may have noticed lately that when I am working on the cars, although it has been just Maude, I am, you know, doing little jobs, you know, just ticking over, keeping myself busy, keeping the content coming, but I'm not really diving into anything major. And that is because, like I hinted in my recent Q&A, there's going to be some big changes in my life very soon, which is going to free me up to do way more videos, not only on my cars, but also getting out there and meeting some of you guys and filming your cars, and going to way more meets and shows. So yeah, at the moment, this is like the calm before the storm. And yeah, I'm just trying to relax a little bit, but you know, keep myself busy at the same time. But I know quite a lot of you do enjoy these kinds of videos where I am just fiddling around with a few little things. So yeah, massive thanks to everyone who regularly gets in touch with your positive words about my videos. A couple of you have been in touch to ask what these changes are that's going to be happening soon. I will make a video soon to let you know exactly what's going on and explain what the changes are and what it means for my life and the channel. But those changes aren't happening until the end of April, so you know, a couple of months left yet. But just know that, you know, this channel's going to get a lot more busy, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So for now, I'm going to end this video here. If you did think it was any good, please do give it a thumbs up and a share. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Click subscribe if you're new and you want to keep up to date with all my future uploads, and check the links in the description to my social media. I'll also leave a link down there to my own website where you can check out my regular blog posts. And for those of you that want to support and represent the channel by grabbing yourself some official Marcus Hayes merchandise, you can grab that from my website as well. I'll also leave my email address in the description for those of you that want to get in touch with me. Massive thanks to each and every one of you for your continued support on my channel. But other than that, until next time, thanks for watching.